Hey everybody, it's me, Zach. This is my dog, Potato, and welcome back to our channel. Hey everybody, it's me, Zach, and Amberlynn went live on Tuesday night for 3 hours. And in my last video, I did ask for some grace and patience when it came to me covering it. Although I didn't know that she'd be live for 3 hours. She's been pretty consistent with members-only live streams, only going live for 2 hours. So when I woke up on Wednesday morning and saw that it was 3 hours long, I was like, oh damn, besties, this is not what I was anticipating, and this is gonna take me much longer than even I originally thought. And that's mostly because usually when I sit through these like long live streams from her, I have to take several breaks and get up and go do other stuff. And I also take notes. And I took a lot of notes on this. And after I got done, I sat down to film a video and I started going based off of my notes, and I just realized it was all so confusing because so much happened. If I'm being honest, Amberlynn was, well, I've seen a lot of other people using this phrase, and I think it's fitting, but Amberlynn was crashing out. Like, Amberlynn was not having a good time on the live stream. She was yelling, she was raging. Like, for all intents and purposes, Amberlynn's had some pretty wild live streams in the history of her channel, where she's been emotional, but the level of like rage in this particular live stream almost was really giving like Foodie Beauty Chantal Marie vibes. So I did my best to reorganize all of my notes to cover a good chunk of the things that she talked about in this live stream. I already know that I'm not going to cover everything, and hopefully that is something for you that will be helpful in going and watching other reaction channels and seeing their perspectives on stuff and figuring out what they felt was important to cover. It's certainly not to say that anything that I don't cover here isn't important. It's just that I also only have so much time in the day, and I really want to get to the things that feel most pertinent to me. I guess to just preface, because if I show any clips and this happens in these clips, I just want you to know in advance about it. Amberlynn, throughout the stream, uses Beck's old name, Beck's old pronouns, like constantly is mixing it up and messing it up throughout the entire live stream. In general, I would say once or twice is probably an honest mistake, and I actually can understand some of Amberlynn's reasoning. There were lots of people in her chat that were using the wrong pronouns or the wrong name, and if you're like trying to read through the chat and answer questions and you read something because it's what the people in the chat typed, I could see the mistake being made that way. And in fact, Amberlynn even tried to correct those people or asked those people to use the correct name and pronouns. But she also like went on and on and on about how like flustered it was making her to be on a live stream, to be trying to balance like keeping track of all of these screenshots that she had and reading the chat and telling and talking from her own perspective. And I kind of felt like when she said that, I was like, well, yeah, Diva, you probably didn't have to do all of this in a live stream. In fact, in general, all of your arguments would probably be better articulated if you weren't jumping around from reading the chat to searching through old phones for screenshots and things like that. It should also be noted that she fully also was just talking about Beck, not reading the chat or anything, and still using the wrong name and pronouns. And people in the chat were calling her out for it as well, and when Amberlynn was like reflecting on that, she at some point decides to ask this question about how is using Beck's wrong name any different from the people that call her Amber instead of Amberlynn.
So my question is why? So I say very, like, I want to know, like, genuinely, because like I'm dumb and this isn't meant to offend or anything like that. So sometimes I slip and I say Becky, even though they want to be called Beck, right? Okay. That's fair. But how come I want to be called Amberlynn? I've made that very fucking clear. How come they're allowed to call me Amber? That's not, like, I genuinely don't understand. Like, if you want to be called something, you need to make that clear and people need to respect that. So my question is like, like, I want to be called Amberlynn. I've made that very clear multiple times that that is what I want to be called. My name is not Amber. I hate that name, genuinely, truly. So I want to learn, because maybe I am stupid in that area. So someone teach me, please.
And many people in the chat helped her come to the right conclusion about this, but in case it's not clear to anybody here, I would love to help reiterate kind of like what the differences are here, because I will say, I think in general, we should just call people what they want to be called. I don't think that that's too hard or too difficult of a concept to understand, and it's a pretty easy thing to do. But also, Amberlynn is talking about a preference for a nickname that people call her. I believe her legal name is Amber Reed, and her middle name is Lynn, and she's just always preferred to combine the two, and I think that that's fine for her to say that she prefers that. But let's also not forget that there was a time that she did call her channel Amber Reed because there was a porn star named Amberlynn that was trying to get her to stop using it and sent her like some lawyer cease and desist letter, and so Amberlynn for a short amount of time changed the name of her channel to Amber Reed. She also frequently features her mom in videos calling her Amber as well. And that's not to say that Amberlynn can't change her mind about those things, but it's also to say that like it's not so intrinsic to Amberlynn's identity that it's causing things like dysphoria or stuff that might make you feel like you're not the gender that you are. And in that way, Beck asking to be called Beck and not their former name is a way that Beck is trying to come closer to their gender identity. In general, Amberlynn has a pretty dubious relationship when it comes to topics and issues surrounding transgender people and or non-binary, gender non-conforming people. For instance, in the past, she's dead named Casey multiple times. It's been quite some time since she did that, but that was something around the time that I first started watching her that really irked me about her. She's also had some weird takes on if she would or wouldn't date trans people. And even more recently, Beck talked about their experience of sharing about their gender identity for the first time with Amberlynn, and Amberlynn kind of dismissed it and said, I don't know, I think you're a woman. If I were to try and give Amberlynn the most generous motives in all of these cases, I would like to say that it all comes down to just like ignorance on her behalf. I don't think she has a lot of queer people in her life, and to be quite honest, like I learn every day from other queer people in my community when it comes to the lived experiences of trans people and gender non-conforming people. But I also fear that that's not really the case for Amberlynn, or more so maybe that she doesn't care to not be ignorant about the situation. And as somebody who is non-binary, I would say that my experience from talking to, well, my personal experience, but also talking to other non-binary and trans people in my life is that most people just want the folks that they're closest to, their friends, their family, etc., to genuinely see them for who they are. And in my case, or in my experience, a lot of people aren't usually upset after like one or two mistakes, as long as the person actually corrects themselves and makes an effort to not let it happen again. And so outside of the scope of Amberlynn and things like that, if there is somebody in your life who is trans or non-binary, the best thing you can do is to like be serious about your efforts to respect their names and pronouns. It is really infuriating that Amberlynn can't get her shit together when it comes to that, but it's also not super surprising to me. One of the things that's really frustrating and annoying about this live stream is that Amberlynn cycles through 3 phrases ad nauseum in this live stream. She repeatedly says, you know, I'm not all good, I'm not all bad, Beck's not all good, Beck's not all bad. She loves to say multiple things can be true at once. And this stream in particular, repeatedly talked about how things are nuanced. Everything's nuanced. And first of all, let me apologize for if I contributed to her use of the word nuance. It is a word that I like to use a lot because I think especially when talking about like people who are complicated humans, there's always room for nuance, and I really do genuinely believe that. And I have even used it talking about Amberlynn in times where people got frustrated with me because they felt like I was defending her too much. And I fear that she has adopted some of my language to talk about this particular situation. And see, the problem is that Amberlynn says all of these things because she thinks it's the right thing to say, or she's heard people say similar things, but she doesn't really mean that. What she really wants is what her story has been pretty consistently, which is Amberlynn good, Beck bad. But Amberlynn's really bad at seeing nuance. We know that she's a black and white thinker. We know that she speaks in absolutes. And oftentimes that black and white thinking or those absolutes depends on literally whatever might be sitting in front of her at any given moment. She has a very microscopic view. She can see literally what's on her plate right in front of her, but she does an awful job at like backing up and seeing the bigger picture. Just in this live stream, there's two really good examples of her not being able to look at things with nuance, to not being able to think about the gray area and not just black or white. For instance, at the beginning of the stream, and actually probably multiple times throughout the stream, she talks a lot about how nobody cares. Not a single person cares about anything she has to say, any of the proof, any of the evidence that she brings to the table, any of the accountability she's taken. Nobody cares.
And it's like, no matter how sincere I was in all of my apologies and all of the accountability I took, no one gave a fuck. Like, it didn't matter. Like, it didn't matter what I said. It didn't matter what proof I showed. Like, nothing mattered. Reaction channels and haters are no longer reliable. Like, they are so unreliable in this, and they're so biased that it's like, it's almost scary at this point. Can't take any of them seriously at all.
And when you talk in absolutes like that, you're certainly not seeing the nuance. You're certainly not seeing a world where like that could have other possibilities, or there could be other options out there. And it's proven in the chat while she's talking that there are people that care. There are people who are paying members of her channel that care about her and say things like, I support you, Amberlynn. I'm so proud of you for sharing your side of the story. I'm really here to support you no matter what. So like, just the people in her chat alone, I mean, there were also people in the chat not saying those things, but there were people in the chat proving that it's not the case, that nobody cares about what she has to say. And you know, honestly, what she really means when she says no one cares or nobody cares, what she really means is the haters don't care, reaction channels don't care. But even in those instances, like, reaction channels are able to see nuance. Reaction channels are able to see things from her perspective. In fact, like, again, I can't speak for other reaction channels, but I know even if she's trying to say all reaction channels treat her that way, I know that's not true because that's not how I treated her. Like, I specifically remember saying that it was good that Amberlynn apologized for the Instagram post that she made that blamed Beck for her cancer being bad, or as bad as it was. And certainly it was tough to find a lot of instances in that live stream where she took accountability without immediately following up and blaming Beck. But like, that is an example of me seeing things from her perspective and appreciating something that she said in that video. Another good example of her not seeing the black and white, or like thinking in absolutes and only being able to think about what's immediately in front of her at any given time, is an example where she, at one point in the live stream, wants to go on this crusade talking about how much of a liar Beck is. And in that instance, the first lie she can think about is that Beck admitted to lying to Eric and Ricky about Amberlynn having bed bugs.
Like, this is no longer about like how they were treated, that I was like not a good girlfriend all the time. Like, this is no longer about that anymore. And I hope that they like make their coin do what they need to do because God, it's a lot. Like, it's genuinely a lot. And I have to sit here and like take screenshots and get all this proof. And then they're just like, yeah, this happened, and everyone believes it. Like, Beck is proven to be a liar on YouTube, off of YouTube, literally admitted to lying to their best friends about bed bugs. Like, it's just a lot.
But then much later in the stream, she sees something in the chat, if I remember correctly, that makes her think about the ways that, like, Beck has allegedly never taken accountability for the bad shit that they did.
Beck has yet to admit one thing they have done wrong. Yeah, not one fucking example of anything they've done wrong. Not one tiny example. But yet I've sat here and I've literally listed off things and said, I shouldn't have done that. I shouldn't have done that. I shouldn't have done that. But they don't have to do that. Okay.
I just want to say, first of all, claiming that Beck was such a bad, terrible liar for lying to Eric and Ricky about the bedbug situation is kind of wild and crazy because it also implicates you, Amberlynn. I mean, in the part where you're talking about it in the live stream, you just really gloss over that. You just really zoom right on by that. But you seem to forget that the lie was to help you cover up that you had bed bugs. So you were also being deceptive to Eric and Ricky, diva. But again, going to these absolutes, these extremes of just making these bold claims that Beck has never taken accountability for any of the things that they did, when they literally, you reference something they literally did take accountability for. They said in their video that they should not have done that they should not have lied to their friends about their partner having bed bugs when their partner was getting ready to move into Eric and Ricky's house. And it's like she can only focus on what point she's trying to make at any given time, that she completely forgets that it contradicts something she said at the beginning of the stream. And let me also just say that, like, Amberlynn's not wrong when she uses these phrases. She just doesn't actually believe in them. Like, I do agree that, like, Amberlynn is probably not all bad or all good. Like, there's probably, I know it's hard to find, it's hard to see, but there's probably some good redeeming quality about Amberlynn that we just don't see on the YouTubies. And similarly, I agree, Beck is not all good, all bad. And in fact, Beck has owned up to a lot of criticism and feedback they've been given and talked about a lot of things that they've done wrong on their channel. And like I mentioned in the last video I posted, there is a lot of nuance and this back and forth about the things that happened in their relationship, because there were so many things that they're talking about that literally they were only present for, right? Like, there are so many things that, like, we'll never know about because cameras weren't rolling and we weren't physically present to see that happen. And also, there's so many things that did happen on camera. There's so many things that are on Amberlynn's channel herself, like her own channel, that indicate what really happened in those situations. And because of that, there's nuance. Like, 100% do agree about that. Amberlynn's just mad that, like, nuance isn't working in her favor. Amberlynn's just mad that people are primarily seeing the bad that she's done and primarily seeing the good stuff that Beck has done. In this live stream, Amberlynn spends a good chunk of time, like, hyper dissecting language and semantics around this shared fucking joint bank account, whatever, and the logistics of how that worked and this, that, the other.
We shared a joint account the whole time we were together in a relationship. They had a debit card attached to it. I had a debit card attached to it the whole time. I did not have anything separate, different, etc., etc. If I did, why would I so badly want them to get off of the joint account? It doesn't make sense to me.
She also claims that she never had a private account. And she also shares lots of screenshots, which they are screenshots. I about did, like, quotation marks. She has screenshots I guess what I should put quotation marks around is that they were intended to provide proof. There you go for the quotation marks. That Beck could use money freely as they wanted. And listen, Amberlynn yaps a lot in this stream about like, oh my god, since when are screenshots not proof? Since when are we no longer allowing screenshots to be receipts? It's just, I feel like I'm losing my mind. I'm going insane. I'm being gaslit. Y'all are gaslighting me because since when were screenshots not proof? It's almost like she thought she could just take a screenshot of fucking anything in her phone and we should just accept that it's proof that Beck could do whatever they wanted financially while they were in a relationship with Amberlynn. And a lot of the criticisms from the last live stream she did when it came to the screenshots is that a lot of it was provided without context. A lot of it she barely left up on the screen. And when it was on the screen, it was really blurry, so it was hard to see what people were actually saying. She also had a lot of stuff redacted from previous screenshots. But my problem with screenshots in this particular live stream is that most of them are just her texting other people that aren't Beck about Beck.
Here's more proof that we shared the same bank account and that they had their own debit and I had my own debit. They would buy what they wanted. I would buy what they wanted. So Eric was like, I sent the Venmo for it. And because how we would pay bills was through Venmo. And I was like, this is from May 13th, 2020, by the way. I was like, I'll approve it tomorrow because I have a limit of how much I can spend in 24 hours because it was true. When I had that bank, the limit was not as high as like what the limit I have now is, thank God. And I was like, it's because Becky bought the TV yesterday with her debit card and I bought Torrid yesterday with my debit card from the same joint account. That looked wrong. The one that she's literally lying about, which I do not fucking understand. Anyways, here's more proof of that, where I was like, it's because Becky bought the TV yesterday and I bought Torrid yesterday. If I was the one who bought, let's just say for an example, if I was the one who bought the TV, why would I say that Becky bought it? Like, this is genuinely so easy to process in brains, and it's hard for me to have proof. I wish more than anything I still had that fucking bank account because you guys, I would literally show you all transactions. This was from Beck. This was from me. This was from Beck. This is like, I'm just so annoyed at this point. Here's one, me and Eric. Becky, okay, so I put, well, first of all, Beck lost her debit card and then realized that they left it at DQ and then their card was declining. So they came and got mine. So that sentence all within itself right there, if Beck didn't have a debit card, it's just the lie from them is so confusing that it makes me trying to explain this actually so confusing. So if we if we shared a bank account and supposedly I had my own separate thing, but then they had their own separate thing with no income or whatever, then how was it possible for them to constantly buy things, etc., etc.? Also think about that, okay? I forgot. Well, first of all, Beck lost their debit card and then realized that they left that DQ, blah, blah, blah. Okay, so there's proof of that. And then so Beck had to come and get mine, duh, because we have the same freaking whatchamacallit. Right here, I put, Becky is constantly buying weird ass shit from different countries on and off because I was talking about how like my card just like keeps messing up and like I'm afraid because I have bills. Literally proof right here. Becky is constantly buying weird ass shit from different countries and off of iTunes. And I was like, I cannot tell her that though, because, and then it was like personal information I'm not going to share.
Like telling them stories about Beck going and getting Dairy Queen and then something going wrong with their debit card. So they had to come back to Amberlynn's house or to the apartment or whatever and get Amberlynn's debit card so that they could pay for the Dairy Queen. There was another one about Amberlynn maxing out the daily limit on their bank account because Beck bought a TV and she bought a whole bunch of stuff from Torrid. And so the first thing you need to know is that seemingly these were like texts to either Eric or Ricky or some other mutual shared friend. And so, like, that doesn't mean that those stories actually happened the way that Amberlynn told them. Like, Amberlynn's been known to fib about a story. But honestly, the biggest issue I also take with this is that this isn't proof of anything. It's at best maybe proof that like Beck could use a debit card to spend money. Right? Like those things that Amberlynn's talking about Beck purchasing was a TV that Amberlynn probably used and watched and benefited from and enjoyed. And also Dairy Queen, which presumably was also for Amberlynn to eat. I mean, in this live stream, if I remember correctly, Amberlynn also talked about how she spent so much money on fast food because she and Beck were constantly eating out. So the reality is the Dairy Queen, yeah, some of it may have been for Beck, but also certainly was for Amberlynn. And so it's like, yeah, I would assume you would approve these purchases of things that you're gonna get to benefit from. And honestly, at this point, the continued conversations and discussion about the logistics of the bank account and what bank accounts Amberlynn did or didn't have access to and this, that, the other is so far away from the original point that Beck made. And I don't know if that's intentionally designed by Amberlynn like that or if it's just like a product of her unorganized thoughts. But the reality is we knew Beck was able to get things, to buy things, to have things. Amberlynn was happy to show when Beck got new t-shirts and shit like that. We saw that on Amberlynn's channel. It wasn't ever really, at least my understanding of Beck's original point about all of this, about money, about the ways that Amberlynn used money to manipulate them. The whole point was that Amberlynn used money to manipulate and control Beck. And specifically, the part that Beck said that they didn't have a say in what money was spent on was the inheritance that they got when their mom passed away. That was specifically where this conversation, or at least most recently, where this conversation about control over money came from, because Beck was like, the money got put into an account and I didn't get to say what we did with it. Amberlynn told me it had to be spent on bills and rent and things like that. So Amberlynn has taken us so far away from talking about the inheritance money because she's hyper-focused this on being a conversation about a shared bank account. And I will say, I just remembered this as I was talking about everything. I don't actually have this in my notes anymore. But Amberlynn also got mad over like conversations about if Beck did or didn't drive for Uber Eats, and it was more of the same. It became about, you know, the semantics of like, well, if you're saying that you did drive for Uber Eats multiple times, then how are you also saying that I wouldn't let you work? Which is not, again, the original point that Beck was making about that situation. Beck was saying that like Amberlynn tried to make things like that about Beck trying to leave her. So if Beck did start to save some of their own money, if Beck did want to go out and work or find a job or things like that, Amberlynn would say manipulative things like, oh, are you trying to leave me? Are you trying to save up money so you can leave me? And so yeah, maybe Amberlynn sometimes was supportive of Beck leaving to go work on things. But that doesn't mean that Amberlynn didn't do manipulative things or say manipulative things. Obviously, one of the big things about this live stream that a lot of people were anticipating or wanting to talk about was Beck's update about the washcloths and the way that Amberlynn wiped herself prior to Beck coming into the picture. And while it was clear that a lot of this frustration and rage was coming from Beck sharing that very specific detail about Amberlynn, I will say that I didn't get the sense from this stream that Amberlynn really ever directly confirmed or denied the poop cloth allegations. Although she was happy to make several shit-related puns throughout the stream.
Two people can be shitty at the same time, okay? And I can admit my shitty. I definitely can, no pun intended.
I would say the closest she really came to addressing it is saying that Beck really was only doing that and sharing that information out of vengeance and was making it personal.
It's not that the hygiene stuff pissed me off the most. I think it's like the fact that like they weren't expecting me to like stick up for myself, and now that I am, they're like, how can I hurt Amberlynn? And now they're doing things to try to hurt me. They're not hurting me. They're pissing me off, and they're making me like all the things that like I know about them, like it's like on the tip of my fucking tongue, because it's like if you can sit here and be like, Amberlynn did this, Amberlynn did that, Amberlynn's so gross because of this and this and this and this. It's like it makes me want to be like, Becky is not the person you guys think that they are, and this is what I know. It's like on the tip of my fucking tongue. Becky has always been extremely manipulative, and it's not just me that thinks that, it's everyone that has been in our life that thinks that.
But I have to say, I really felt like Beck articulated why they shared that particular piece of information in their video. And they did clearly say that Amberlynn was living in a different reality, and that essentially they were sharing that information because Amberlynn was minimizing the ways that they helped take care of her. I understand why this would be embarrassing for Amberlynn and why she would be really upset that this information came out. And I also want to say there's lots of people with disabilities who can't do everyday tasks like this in a normal way or the way that like a lot of people do. And honestly, I think a lot of people take things like that for granted. With that being said, I imagine if Amberlynn would have just came on to Al Gore's internet and said, hey, Beck did a lot to take care of me. Beck did a lot of embarrassing things to take care of me. I assume Beck did that at the time because they cared about me. I really appreciate all of the things that Beck did because I don't know how I would have done it otherwise. And then left it at that, not said anything more about it, not followed up with a, but Beck did this, not sat there and threatened, which I should say Beck did address this too. I don't think I covered it in my video yesterday. But Beck did say like, oh, if Amberlynn wants to talk about the embarrassing things she did for me, here they are. Amberlynn threatened to come out with more stuff. So it wasn't even really like accountability. And if you believe Beck, it wasn't even the full truth about what Amberlynn needed from Beck. I imagine had Amberlynn not threatened Beck with sharing more information about their life, and if Amberlynn would have just simply thanked Beck for the things that they did for her, I imagine Beck wouldn't have shared that information or added on to any kind of details about Amberlynn cleaning herself. And speaking of previous threats that Amberlynn made towards Beck, in this live stream, Amberlynn continued to threaten Beck with new things. Amberlynn claims that she could literally text Beck a 4-letter name and Beck would know exactly what she was going to talk about.
Beck said it themselves. If they did something so awful, tell them so they can say sorry. I might just text Beck. It's going to be 4 letters. All I have to do is text 4 letters and they'll know exactly what I'm talking about. You won't say what Beck did, but we're supposed to be mad at them on your behalf. I'm literally telling you that's the reason why, like, I'm not sitting here and being like, oh, Beck did this and Beck did that. Because the main thing that is in my brain that I've told the people closest to me, it is illegal. I will say that. So I'm not going to just sit here and be like, well, this is what happened. Because it's so fucking hectic. And I'd rather talk to Becky literally privately. Because it's like, if you're going to sit here and air out every single fucking thing that I did or didn't do, or you're lying, you're even like twisting things and like exaggerating and like sharing personal stuff. It's like, what's to stop me from doing that? What's genuinely, what is to stop me from doing that? I want to know. What is to stop me from doing that? I don't want you guys to be mad at Beck on my behalf. I want you guys to be mad at Beck because Beck is lying to get your money. All that money you guys gave Beck for the car never went to the car. Never went to the car. No, that never went to the car. And that is information I have known for the longest time, but I choose not to speak on Beck. I chose not to. Yes, I was threatened. And that scared me. I was like, oh shit, the law's gonna get involved. I better shut my mouth. But now that Beck is yapping at the bits because they know, like, that they're gonna make hella money from it, it's my turn to yap at the bits. And I'm choosing to yap at the bits where I want to. There is still some small part of me that's like, Amberlynn, do not share super personal information. You will regret it. So there is that part of me that is genuinely stopping myself from doing that.
And this is not the first time Amberlynn has used behavior like this before. She's constantly doing this. She's constantly like dangling out stuff about people that she's in conflict with. I think the most egregious case of this is her continuously talking about how she could say bad things about Destiny but wasn't going to, and then eventually just in a live stream, I think it was a live stream, might have been a video, I don't remember, but just out of nowhere was like, all right, well, if Destiny wants to keep talking about me, then I'm going to share what I know about Destiny. And it was a story about how Destiny and Dana put their dog down. If Amberlynn wanted to share this stuff about Beck, she would. And she probably will. But she's going to use it in all forms of manipulation for as long as she can until she no longer feels like it holds any kind of leverage over Beck. And when she gets to that point, she will say it. Another thing that I think a lot of people thought was interesting, and I found interesting myself, is that Amberlynn made accusations about Beck's partner being controlling.
Can we talk about how Beck clearly has a ghostwriter? Yeah, fucking ChatGPT. Or the fact that their fucking partner is so controlling. Oh my God. So this was a message from my friend. It is, if you guys have Snapchat, then you know, like, this is how it looks when you're on Snapchat, okay? This is talking about Beck. I'd exposed them. They lied about how and why our friendship ended. They admitted to staying with you for money when dating you. They lied about what they used that money people gave her for. They didn't get their car fixed. They went and bought weed and go out to on it. I don't know what that means. They are also lying about their fiance. We ran into, I don't want to like dox people, but whatever you call it. Ran into Beck's sister at Casa. She told us how horrible the fiance is and controls Beck. Logan and Lydia, which you guys saw on live stream forever ago, also told me about it. I've heard it from multiple people that how they speak to her. The fiance made Beck get rid of all of her Kate Winslet stuff. Won't let Beck speak to certain people, especially when the fiance thought Beck and Logan were sleeping together. I don't even know anything about that. That was shocking. Had to take Hannah and Rafe off of Facebook and delete their numbers, which is crazy behavior because they were in like a throuple in a relationship, and then don't even get me started on that. The girl Beck is evil, and on there demonizing you and singing their praises when they're the awful person, and is not supporting Beck in this whole crusade to get money off of you for the fiance to benefit. So that's all from a friend. The grammar's off a bit, sorry. And I'm also trying to respect pronouns, etc., etc. So that was a little confusing, but it's like, Beck is not this like angel. Beck is not an angel.
Mind you, I don't think Amberlynn's ever met Beck's current partner. And to be quite honest, all of Amberlynn's intel comes from a Snapchat message she got from an alleged mutual friend. Amberlynn also thinks it's a red flag that Beck's partner was like a hater of Amberlynn's. I don't know about the validity of that. I haven't really looked into that at all. But what is confusing to me is that it's a red flag for Beck to be dating somebody who's potentially a former or current or both hater of Amberlynn. But it's not a red flag for Amberlynn to have a long distance relationship with Erica, who followed me and was trolling her, but maybe she didn't know that Erica was trolling her, but knew Erica was following me, not a red flag. Nor does she think it's a red flag that the majority of her partners have been people that knew her because of her online presence. I will say that since Amberlynn did this live stream, Beck did make a community tab post about this, and I'll read that for you now. Amberlynn came on her live stream last night and said some disgusting things about my current partner, who is not a public figure, and who she has never met and does not know. Nothing she said had anything to do with the things I've called her out for in my videos. She thinks she can drive a wedge between myself and my loved ones, even my own family, but it won't work. I won't make a video about this because it was nothing but a woman spiraling and blindly throwing punches in every direction. Amberlynn, whoever told you these things is no friend of mine, clearly, even if they used to be. The only person's opinion of my partner that matters is mine, and she has never controlled, forced, or even asked me to do anything that I have or have not done for my relationship, my life, and my personal healing and growth. She supports me coming out about my experience because she is a supportive partner. I don't have to tell you that it's wrong to publicly make statements about someone who is not a public figure and has nothing to do with what I've come out and said about you. I hope you do take some time off to reflect on your recent behavior. I hope you take enough steps back to see that I never had to say any of what I have said in my videos. If you want me to stop speaking on you, if you want your audience to form better opinions of you, there are easy solutions. Taking accountability without simultaneously talking negatively about the people you are apologizing to is not hard. Instead, you once again threatened me in an attempt to get me to stop talking. What you did last night and in your public live stream was vile, and the things I said in my video were only a response to that. The more you try to pick fights and hurt me instead of actually listening, actually apologizing, actually working to correct things, the deeper you dig yourself into this hole you're spiraling yourself right into. And I actually agree with every single part of that, you know? So much of Amberlynn's live stream on Tuesday was just a diversion tactic. Throwing punches in the direction of things that don't deserve to be punched at. Throwing punches in the direction of things to take people's vision away from the things that are actually important here. So much of it is just what can Amberlynn talk about that isn't the actual things that people are concerned about to get people riled up about something else. And while we're talking about people in Beck's personal life that Amberlynn chose to talk about in this specific live stream, I did think it's interesting that Amberlynn talked about being blocked by Beck's sister, but it was only just a recent blocking. As in, Amberlynn just recently tried to reach out to Beck's sister to ask Beck's sister why they were coming out and saying all of these things.
Sister, one day ago, even sister, and we held interventions about it, I wouldn't follow them. Me and Beck's sister talked a lot after me and Beck broke up. Even when Beck was doing those live streams with Logan, me and their sister were still talking on a friendly thing. I was actually just blocked by Beck's sister one day ago on Facebook because I thought we were still on friendly terms because we were they would say, I love you. I hope you're doing good. We would open up, they opened up to me about an abusive relationship they were in. It was crazy. And I was giving advice and I was you don't deserve that. I don't have to go into personal detail. And then, so I saw their Facebook status a few days ago and I messaged the sister and I was just you're in my thoughts. I saw, your Facebook status. I hope you're okay. And then next thing you know, I'm blocked because I actually went to message Beck's sister because I was actually, do I still have it up on here? Well, I might have it on here. I might not be able to click it, but I was today I was messaging Beck's sister saying, I understand I wasn't the greatest girlfriend, but why is Beck lying? Because I thought me and the sister were still cool. I thought we were still friends. I thought we were still there for each other. So I was I had this whole paragraph. It was worded better than what I'm coming out with right now, but I wanted to know from the sister's point of view, why is this happening? If the sister even knows. But when I went to send it, it said that I was blocked. So, that happened literally today.
It's just really so wild to me, and it's also very apparent and obvious to me that Amberlynn has no context of what actual friendship looks like. Because in what world do you think it's even appropriate to reach out to Beck's sister, let alone think that Beck's sister would be somebody who would be your friend? It also seems worth noting, and is probably particularly interesting to folks, that Amberlynn did really lose it on paying members of her channel.
Just Danny, can you please stop? Thank you. Like, I haven't blocked anyone, but I genuinely will. Like, I genuinely will, and I'm not joking. Like, I understand you paid to be here, but paying to troll or paying to invalidate or paying to, like, be patronizing, etc., like, I'm not going to deal with it. I'm not in a good headspace. Like, you can clearly see that. And I'm, like, trying my very hardest to, like, stick up for myself. And if you're not in support of that, actually leave. Like, genuinely leave. Like, if you can actually look at this and be like, Amberlynn does not have a right to speak, then leave. I understand you're a paying member and I appreciate you very fucking much. Like, I will Venmo you the $5 back, but I cannot have people who do not support me standing up for myself. For too fucking long, my whole actual life, I never fucking stood up for myself. As a kid, whether it be in school, my parents, it doesn't fucking matter, foster homes, this and that, never stuck up for myself. All the fucking haters in the reaction channels, the minute I try to stick up for myself, I'm gaslighted into believing and thinking that I shouldn't do that. And now I have a fucking ex who is literally torturing me. Like, so if you do not think that I have the right to do this, then leave. Like, genuinely, leave.
I do get the frustration of having people in this space that she intentionally built to be a safer space for her to talk to her fans. I understand the frustration of having people pay to get into that space and then come and be rude. The person that she seemed particularly upset with in that clip was just Danny, a person who I do think had some critical questions for her, but I also feel like had questions and comments that were in support of her. I mean, who really knows on this corner of the internet if that person was acting in good faith or not? But what I think is really more important is that Amberlynn should have really realized that that was maybe a sign to give it a rest, to maybe log off, to maybe realize that, like, this was not productive. And yet after that, she went on to stream for like 2 more hours. I will say, in terms of things that probably a lot of people are talking about, there were several conversations regarding sexual assault that Amberlynn has experienced in her life. I'm mostly mentioning this here to say that I'm not overlooking it, but that I historically don't really love to cover that topic on my channel. I do, of course, think it's important to discuss, and certainly there are probably folks much better equipped to do it than me. And to be quite honest, I don't feel equipped to talk about it at this time. Outside of the raging, which I really feel like was mostly confined to the first couple hours of the stream, in the last hour of stream, she gave some updates. One of those updates was on her changing therapists or the types of therapy she was doing.
I was doing EMDR therapy, and I had 3 appointments. And within those 3 appointments, the therapist was like, honestly, I think that you would benefit more doing DBT therapy. And you guys know, because I've been talking about it. I want to do DBT therapy so bad. It's almost like day 1 of DBT therapy, I'm going to be fangirling. Like, I'm genuinely going to be fangirling. Like, like, you don't even know. And I really like the therapist I was seeing. And I like the fact that they were like, you know what, even if we have to stop seeing each other, like, I genuinely think that DBT would be better for you. So I'm going to be doing DBT therapy because DBT therapy was actually created for people with borderline personality disorder by someone with borderline personality disorder.
I am kind of fascinated that she didn't just find somebody who could do DBT therapy for her to begin with. It doesn't make a lot of sense to me that she wouldn't. And I also think it's interesting that, like, all the way up through the stream, she mentioned therapy at different points of the stream. like in a way where she was talking about, you know, utilizing it to continue working on herself. But I'm really unclear on if she already has like a therapist who does DBT types of therapy, or if she's still looking for that. For her sake, I'm really hoping she already has somebody else lined up, but it was kind of unclear to me, to be honest. And outside of that, she also proclaimed in this video that she would be taking a break from YouTube. In particular, apparently the video that she uploaded on Wednesday the 12th, apparently that was the last pre-recorded vlog that she had available, which I do think is fascinating considering that's a very quick catch-up. She must have really taken some time off from vlogging, because I feel like the last vlog we watched was like March 1st or something like that. Honestly, I really think a break is probably what she needs to take. Probably what she needs to do. She probably needs to just like take some time to work on herself. Whether or not she actually utilizes that time to do that is hard to say. But what I will say is that she hasn't yet taken a break from social media, because she's also already been on Instagram, on her Instagram stories, complaining about Beck. The first story on her Instagram is a picture of some like pretty crude art that was drawn about her and her wiping, and the message that she attached with it says, "Beck, you caused this, and for that, I'll never stay silent again. Good job. I'm not afraid of you anymore. What you're doing isn't healing or taking the high ground. It's immaturity and shows that you haven't changed at all. Remember making fun of your ex by posting their dirty underwear on social media? Or when you harassed your 18-year-old stepsister at their workplace because you wanted to date her, even though you were almost 30? You haven't changed at all. You've just gotten better at manipulation. And again, good job. You're a good actor, remember?" I do think a lot of the language Amberlynn uses there is really interesting and fascinating, because it kind of echoes a lot of the language that Beck has used to describe their relationship with Amberlynn, and also like their experience now. Like, for instance, the "I'm not afraid of you anymore." That's something that Beck has repeatedly said, especially in this recent go around of posting videos about Amberlynn, talking about the ways that they're not afraid of Amberlynn anymore. I was not aware that Amberlynn was ever afraid of Beck at any point, so it's interesting that she's using that language all of a sudden. And I also don't know that Amberlynn's ever talked about Beck being a manipulative person. I don't know that I recall a time when Amberlynn's talked about Beck that way. So for her to come on to Instagram and say, "You've just gotten better at manipulating," is fascinating to me. I will say those stories that Amberlynn is talking about are things in the Amberlynn channel lore that I do remember. But this really feels like an example of Amberlynn just trying to be like, well, I'm not gonna be respectful anymore. I'm gonna come out and I'm gonna say all the bad things about you now. Because those things were out and about in the world when Amberlynn was in a relationship with Beck, and Amberlynn didn't have shit to say about it then, at least not to my recollection. And Amberlynn posted a second story that said, "Thank you, everyone, for the sweet and kind messages. The support during this time means the world to me." Beck sharing their story of how I was controlling in nature is one thing, as I took full accountability and apologized privately multiple times years ago, and also now publicly. But sharing personal information during extremely vulnerable times that I am ashamed of to thousands of people who belittle me and attack me every single day just to paint me in a certain light is sick beyond words. Beck has reached a low that they promised they wouldn't reach, but the minute I stuck up for myself against the lies, they attack. I might be unhinged, and admittedly so, but they're manipulating their unhinged behavior behind a mask. I fell for the manipulation before, but I'm not doing it again. And this new narrative from Amberlynn that she's been manipulated by Beck feels out of nowhere. Like, I don't ever recall a time where Amberlynn was just this, like, timid person who was being manipulated by Beck. It doesn't make any sense to me, that somehow Amberlynn can take accountability, both in this message and in these live streams, for being controlling of Beck, and yet also somehow Beck was just this master manipulator who was manipulating her. That kind of reminds me of how she told a story about Mama Lynn's opinions about Beck, and one of the things that Mama Lynn didn't like about Beck, allegedly, was that Beck had free range of everything. And I'm just like, how does Beck have free range of everything? And you're also acknowledging and admitting that you're very controlling, and you were very controlling in your relationship with Beck. Like, these are the things that don't make sense to me, and I think don't make sense to a lot of people, and why people tend to believe the things that Beck is saying about their relationship. I guess outside of that, I just have to say that this stream was in fact unhinged. Amberlynn was in fact crashing out. It was not a good look. I don't think it furthered any points Amberlynn was trying to make, and ultimately just tried to create chaos and confusion. Amberlynn would have better been served by doing probably nothing, but if she really felt like she needed to say something, she should have just sat herself down in front of her camera, came with the list of receipts, and organized it in some kind of fashion or manner that made sense to people. But instead, she spent 3 hours online, 2 of which she spent pretty much raging at anybody and everybody, and she really got nowhere. At this point, I don't really understand how people, like, support Amberlynn truly. Like, she does have people who seem to genuinely support her, but after seeing her act that way in that live stream, if I was a paying member that genuinely liked Amberlynn in a way of like, I think she's a great person, which I don't. I think she's an entertaining person and will keep watching the entertainment. But, like, there are people in her members-only live streams who seem to genuinely like her for the person she is. And if that were me at this point, seeing her pop off that way, I don't know that I could support her in that way anymore, personally. But I guess that's coming from a different perspective than some of these people, because I stopped liking her as a person years ago. Years, many years. The first year that I started watching, probably. So, I don't know. I guess I'm not on the same page or the same wavelength as those people, so maybe we should just leave it at that. I do know that Amberlynn did, in fact, post a new vlog. I will try to react to that as well. And of course, if anything else pops off, we'll get to it. And otherwise, if Amberlynn really is serious about taking a break, then I will embrace that break. And we can go cover some stuff that's not Amberlynn on this channel for a bit. Amberlynn has actually posted a new community tab post to talk about her break. She says, "Hello, I feel it's important to be transparent with you all. As many of you know, I've been dealing with the fallout from Beck sharing personal details about our relationship, me, and spreading lies/exaggerating situations. It's been a tough time, and I've been doing my best to navigate through everything. I'm human, and sometimes my emotions, especially with BPD, get the best of me. This whole situation is extremely heavy and unfair. Imagine this happening to you. What would you do? I will no longer stay silent in a situation where I felt threatened to shut my mouth. With the disgusting things Beck has been saying recently, I have lost any respect I had for them. I want to be very clear that this absolutely doesn't take away from the accountability and apologizes I have expressed already. Those things will still stand. All of these things can happen at once, especially in a 5-year relationship that was extremely complex. 2 people can be shitty at once. I was shitty. I listed out the reasons why. But I wasn't all bad, and I will tell you one thing, Beck was never all good. One of the hardest parts of all of this has been the overwhelming amount of harassment I have received. The fact that I feel like I'm being attacked and misunderstood by thousands feels awful, especially in a situation where I am being truthful and vulnerable. This whole situation has validated that no matter what I do, no matter what I say, no matter how much proof I show, I will always be the villain. I show screenshots that Beck is lying and it still isn't good enough. Well, they get to say whatever they want and it's automatically believed because anyone who is versus Amberlynn already gets a pass just for that. It's hard to keep pushing through when I feel belittled and dehumanized. This situation has left me feeling like a shell of a person. Because of everything that's been happening and the toll it's taking on my mental health, I've made a decision to take a step back from posting. I need time to focus on my well-being and to clear my mind. I don't know for how long. I don't know what my next steps are. I just know that I need some space to breathe and focus on myself. Thank you to those who have shown kindness and support during this time. It truly means more than I can express. Thank you for not allowing Beck to taint your view of me because you know how to be nuanced, have critical thinking, and you know that there is a gray area in most situations. I'll be back when I'm ready. Love, Amberlynn. Interestingly enough, though, she posted on her members only tab that she is, in fact, going to still be going live for members only live streams because people paid for it. I think that's interesting. I get that she's probably just trying to keep her commitment to those people that paid, and I guess to that extent I could respect that. But the live streams are where she's really losing her shit, and I don't understand how she thinks that that's going to make things better for her, how that's going to be a better experience for her. I just don't really truly understand any of it. But nevertheless, she apparently will in fact be live again next week on Tuesday at 8:30 Central Time. Either way, I just want to say thank you so much for watching. If you're brand new to my channel, consider subscribing down below. Hit the bell button so you get a notification every single time I post a new video. Make sure to leave me a comment, hit like, click share, and follow me on all my social media. I love you all so much, and I'll see you all next time. Bye!